All right, there we go. Let's begin. The ache for home lives in all of us, Maya Angelou wrote, the safe place where we can go and not be questioned, and go as we are and not be questioned. There is something unquestionably fundamental about having a home and something even more special, I think, about owning one. What could be more central to the American dream than owning a home? Feeling a deep sense of accomplishment, laying the keystone of our financial foundation, and achieving a real feeling of belonging, of membership in a community. That's why it was so exciting to announce late last year that UMB's Live Near Your Work program reached an impressive milestone. $1 million have been given to help 63 university employees buy homes in 7 nearby West Baltimore neighborhoods, all in less than 4 years. And I should note that there are two more communities, Druid Heights and Heritage Crossing, added to the list of eligible communities in 2020. So now there are a total of 9 where people can buy homes. Now, the program is open to the vast majority of employees at UMB. There are some conditions, of course. Probably the most important is the requirement to live in the home at least 5 years after settlement. Financial requirements include being creditworthy and being able to put at least $1,000 down. Laura Lee from our Office of Communications caught up with one home buyer, facilities manager Justin Hanna, in December in the kitchen of his 3-level Pigtown home. I was under the impression, he said, that I needed to save, X amount of money. And I was like, there's no way I won't be able to do that anytime soon. But with the help of what he calls the absolute blessing, that is the Live Near Your Work program, he did it. I'm literally a 10-minute walk from work. I don't need a car, and it's just incredibly convenient to be able to wake up in the morning knowing that I'm not going to get stuck in traffic. My neighbors are awesome too. People are super friendly, and everything I need is right here, just across the street, he said. Now, Justin was able to pull that off with the help of a $16,000 grant from the program and another $2,500 from the city, all used toward down payment and closing costs. And because they made the leap, Justin and his 62 colleagues have also taken the first step in what the Department of Housing and Urban Development calls the largest generator of wealth for families, exceeding even a household's income or their level of educational attainment. I can tell you there are some fascinating data about just who among our colleagues is buying homes through Live Near Your Work, but I'll let the experts tell you about that. And of course, it isn't just the home buyer who reaps all the benefits. Communities are enriched and enlivened by newcomers wherever they go. A neighborhood, after all, is what neighbors make of it and make of each other. Some of the programs purchased in our program were vacant, therefore providing no real estate taxes to the city and potentially causing nuisance issues in their neighborhoods. New neighbors are often more energized, engaged, and invested in the community's quality of life, and they provide added support to local businesses and schools. So communities really benefit too. That's our goal. That aspect of Live Near Your Work, the community development part of it, is just as important as the benefit provided to our employees. Every step of the way, we're working hand in hand with the Southwest Partnership, which represents 7 of those 9 communities, and other civic groups like Live Baltimore. So, what kind of impact has Live Near Your Work already had on our university community and on our local West Baltimore neighborhoods? And what's next for the program? Well, joining the conversation with all the answers are UMB Senior Vice President and Chief Business and Finance Officer, Dr. Dawn Rhodes, and Benefits Manager and Live Near Your Work Program Coordinator, Emily Winkler. Also, someone who has been through the process herself. Haley Markman is the Continuity of Operations Program Manager in UMB's Office of Emergency Management. Thank you all for being here. I have to tell you, the program is being recorded for later posting on the UMB homepage. And a little later in the program, you, the audience, will have a chance to ask the guests your questions. Just write your questions in the chat area. Don't wait. When the time comes, we'll call on you by name and I'll open your mic for you. So all you have to do is speak up. And of course, if you want to remain anonymous, that's okay too. Just let me know that and I'll ask the question for you. Now, with that out of the way, please welcome your host, UMB President, Dr. Bruce Jarrell.
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome all of you. I'd certainly like to thank Dr. Rhodes, thank Haley, and also Emily for being here. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions on this topic. I think it's one of the best examples of how UMB can invest in its community, really be part of its community, which is what we should really be about. So it's my pleasure to be part of this program. And to hear about this milestone. So let me start off with a question of Dr. Rhodes, and that is, Dawn, tell us how this program came to be. What's the brainchild, and how did we get to where we funded it?
Well, it previously existed. Very few people know that. So we didn't create Live Near Your Work in 2018. We reinvigorated it. The brainchild was actually several comments that Dr. Perman made about how we can't necessarily be as rigorous as our program with maybe some of our colleagues across the city. And I kept sitting and thinking from a financial standpoint, we can typically find what I'm going to refer to as the one-time funds around the campus. It's harder to fund those salaries, those dollars where you fund a salary. So what we did was we said, let's go to all of the administrative units. So we did not bother the schools at that point. And we went into their fund balances and we said, we're going to put $1.5 million on the table as the initial phase of Live Near Your Work. And we sat a lot around, and I keep referring to we because there was a group of very dedicated people from human resources, our communications area, that just our community engagement area. James Schaub was part of the group. We all wanted to do this, and there was a lot of conversation about the program before was $2,500. That's not enough to make somebody really change their decision about where they want to live. What dollar amount would? And we came up with 16,000 with the knowledge that the city would match us with another 2.5. So that's 18.5 thousand dollars. And we thought that would be compelling. That would be enough money to help change somebody's decision about where they live. And we partnered with Southwest Partnership initially because that was who we knew and they were so close to the campus. And things just kind of grew from there in terms of the program and all of the work behind it to advertise it to our community members.
Why should UMB do something like this? It seems like, where does it sit in our mission to do this?
So we have a mission that includes service and community engagement. And it creates, I call it a win-win-win. Alex alluded to it earlier. When the team went about putting the program together, we had a mission statement for our group that we referred back to several times. One, we wanted to create a rich benefit for our employees. And two, we wanted to reinvigorate and stabilize communities in our catchment zone. So that's how it fits in. We have employees have the opportunity of owning homes and starting generational wealth through home ownership. As Alex said, we take previously vacant homes that had not been on the tax rolls and add those to the tax base for the city. And then we add stabilization and new energy to the neighborhood and create and add to those communities. I'll point out that of the 63, 41 of those homes are in the Pigtown area. Can you imagine the impact of having 41 new homeowners in one area does to the vibrancy of that community? So we're really happy with what the success that we've achieved so far.
Emily, what would you add to this?
I guess that I would also like to add, we had hosted a trolley tour that first year when we relaunched, and I think a lot of people had never heard of a trolley tour before. And that's where basically we held it on campus. All these neighborhoods came to our campus. We toured just those neighborhoods. And that was a really great way for, I know the committee, I was there to meet our employees. We got a lot of interest after that. And it was a huge success for us. It was a huge success for Live Baltimore, who hosted that. They've become a wonderful partner. They're such a great resource. They're so dedicated to helping employees find the right house for them. So I think that trolley tour was really huge for us as well as part of the launch or relaunch, I should say. And hoping to have another one of those. Again, we've been having those virtually right now, but looking forward to the day we can have that in person again.
Just to add to what Emily said, that trolley tour at UMB was their highest attended trolley tour at that time, and we had over 700 people come. So it wasn't just our employees, but people from across the city that we were hoping to attract to live in this Southwest Partnership area.
And the good thing about that, I know we talk about the $16,000 that we provide and then the 2,500 the city provides, but after that trolley tour, employees got a chance, if they were to purchase a lotto, to get an additional amount of money from that trolley tour. So being able to stack even more to your down payment. So getting to know those neighborhoods in person, seeing the houses in person, and then winning a lotto after. I mean, that was probably one of the best parts of this whole relaunch for me, was being involved with that from the start. There's such a great energy about it, for the neighborhoods and our employees. So it's a win-win, really.
Gotcha. So Haley, how did you get hooked on this? And then how was it supposed to work and how did it work for you?
Thanks for asking, Dr. Jarrell. I was just thinking the trolley tour caught my attention. I just moved to Baltimore and I thought it was a great way to like meet people and then see the community and just learn about just this great benefit. When I read the incentive, I had to do a double take. I was like, whoa, 16.5. Oh, it was just so much money. It just didn't make sense to me. I think I called Emily. I was like, oh, is there a catch? Like, it's just so generous. So, I mean, the process was really easy, honestly, from start to finish, in that the directions were clear, the criteria was clear, and just having the support of Emily and the city and, just navigating that process through the point of contact, I thought that it was a really pleasant experience at the end of the day. And the requirements are rather reasonable, and just a happy camper overall. I'm a cheerleader for the program. It's just phenomenal. And I think anyone who's really interested in home buying should give this an honest look, because it's just a great way to purchase a home, especially your first home. But a wonderful process from start to finish.
And you live just on the fringe, I think you told us, of Pigtown. So how many of your neighbors are part of this program?
That's a great question. I know a handful of people who live in Pigtown as well, who are also employees of UMB, but on my block, it's just me, very small block, and most of the people there are actually homeowners. So it's really tight knit. Yeah.
But that's nice. That's a Baltimore community. That's the way it must have been 100 years ago, and somewhere we lost that. And we have a community back again, and you're part of it. How about that?
Feels great. I hear stories of my neighbors. Their families are generational and they've been in this house for 150 years or something. I mean, these are the stories. So there really is something to be said about the social cohesion and, just looking out for one another. And I imagine every community has that. So it's just been really nice to find an area that feels right for me. And again, thank you so much for just the opportunity to take advantage of something like this.
Yeah, well, you're helping us the same way as we're helping you. I'm sure of that. I want to remind the participants to get questions in to Alex, because obviously this discussion gets really much better when your questions are getting answered as well. So please remember to do this. So I think back about this program when we first started it, and of course I wondered where it was going to go, and yet we've reached a milestone. And Dawn, I want you to tell us about that milestone a little bit more. But as you tell that story, who else should be in this game? Who else? UMB can't help all of West Baltimore alone. It's got to have partners. So how else do we get a critical mass here going to do more of this kind of thing? So Haley's got even more neighbors.
So to answer your second part of the question first, we saw it as the responsibility of us as an anchor institution. And so I would challenge others that are in this part of the community that consider themselves anchor institutions to join us. And you don't have to do the program exactly the way we do. You can change it to fit your affordability, but taking that first, putting your toe in is extremely important to get momentum started. So that's what I would say without calling out actual entities. That's what I would say. Anybody who considers themselves to be an anchor institution, I think
What
we have
kind
a
of,
responsibility.
what kind of entity are you talking about? We know what university is. What other kinds of entities?
Hospitals, I mean, they employ tons of people. We're right here with the VA and UMMC clearly. So it's an opportunity for our colleagues at UMMC and the Veterans Association to do more. And that's how I first became familiar with the Live Near Your Work program. As I was interviewing for positions, I was looking at Wayne State, and they actually had a Live Near Your Work program, and several employers together were working on putting their employees, trying to get employees to move back into the downtown Detroit area. And so it's a phenomenal tool for recruiting. I don't see any downsides to programs like this. And again, it's not base funding, so you can adjust it to your affordability. If for some reason we had a run on the whole 1.1 million, we could have stopped the program for a short period of time until we amass the funds to do it again. So there's different ways to do this. Don't let the future prevent you from starting now.
Right, and I gotta think that this program needs to continue and continue to be funded. We have to figure out how to do that, but it certainly needs to remain a priority.
So we've already set aside another million for the next phase of this. So we still have 500,000 of the original dollars that we earmarked for this program available. So people who are interested in home ownership should definitely be doing this.
For those of you on the call, you can already see who really controls the money at a university. Okay, you think it's the president and the deans, don't you? Now you're seeing it in action, okay? Now you're seeing it in action. So tell us about this milestone, Dawn, from your vantage point.
So from my vantage point, and not necessarily a targeted goal for the program, when you look at the people who've actually bought homes, who are our employees who have actually purchased, 50 people or almost 79% of them have been women. And that's huge. When we look at the country at large in 1990, there were only 32.5% of women homeowners. By the time we get to 2019, it's 49.5%. So we're ahead of the national curve in terms of who at our campus is buying homes. So that's awesome to see. Women have become more and more head of household. Specifically, when we drill down into that, you look at the diversity of who has purchased homes in this program. 55% of them have been African Americans. We have 28 Caucasians. We have 28% Caucasian. We have 13% Asian. So there's been a lot of diversity in terms of who have become new homeowners. And the educational scale goes from a GED to a PhD. It is across the spectrum. So this has been a program that has truly been used by the gamut of people that come to work here every day. And I think that's a huge success to be able to look at the program from that perspective.
So Alex earlier mentioned Live Baltimore, and maybe Emily mentioned that too. Tell us a little bit more about that, and then let's run a video. But let's hear more about it first. Is that you, Emily?
On. I mean,
Go ahead.
Either
okay.
one.
So Live Baltimore is one of our partners that we work very closely with. Like I mentioned earlier, they run our trolley tours. But not only that, I mean, whenever an employee comes to me, I'm kind of like that third party. I don't know it all, but Live Baltimore does. They know the best realtors in Baltimore who have a vested interest in our employees who want to purchase, who know the neighborhoods, who know the grants. Live Baltimore, they're the first ones that know the extra grants that they could stack with ours. They're always, whatever's up and coming, I guess I should say. They know the different lenders. They also have a huge resource of home ownership counseling companies that employees can go through so they can select. So they have been just a huge piece of this puzzle and made it very easy for us to relaunch this program. So Annie and her team have been wonderful. Their energy is great as well. They've just been a delight to work with, and I hope our employees feel the same way because I absolutely love reaching out to them.
Let me add, every time I bump into Annie Milley, the executive director anywhere, she cannot stop talking about our UMB program and how we are the model for the city and how others should be implementing their program. So that's high praise coming from her.
So before Alex, you show it, I want to ask Emily another question. You just talked about stacking different sources of funds. So how good can it get? What's the best stacking you've seen on that?
Honestly, I'm not sure monetary wise. I haven't been. Dawn, do you know? Because
It seems like early on, we had somebody that had gotten in the 50,000s in
That's
terms
what
of
I
being
remember.
able to stack.
yeah. So I mean, it definitely depends on timing. And there could be something that pops up, next week. It's just a matter of finding the right tools to know what's coming. And again, that's why I usually reach out to Live Baltimore because they'll find a way to make it work for our
Gotcha.
employees.
So
Bruce,
Alex,
we're
you want
off.
to show this video?
Hello, I'm Annie Milley, Executive Director of Live Baltimore. I am so excited to extend our congratulations to UMB for surpassing the $1 million investment milestone in its Live Near Your Work program. What an compliment. It has been such a pleasure since the relaunch of the program in January of 2018, watching it become truly the most ambitious and effective in the city. We have been in awe of UMB as you have empowered, supported, and really just encouraged all of your employees to become West and Southwest Baltimore homeowners. We know homeownership is a dream of so many and so important to the fabric of our communities. Thank you for all that you have done to support your employees, to support our communities, and to support us at Live Baltimore. We are grateful for your partnership, and we look forward to working with you toward that next $1 million of investment.
That's a great message, Alex. So we get everybody back, did we? There we go.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned you have to turn your cameras back on after a video.
Gotcha. So Alex, you said there's a couple of questions already, so we'll interweave the questions with other conversation.
Sure, we'll start with an easy one. TH is joining us, who wants to know more about the program requirements and just get a little more in depth. Go ahead, TH. TH. Go ahead, speak up. All right, well, I guess TH, I'll try one more time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to know if there was like a program, like a packet that we can look on the UMB website and see all the requirements and stuff for that.
Oh, okay.
We have our UMB Live Near Your Work website, so I don't know if you can add that to the chat or we'll have it at the end. But in terms of program requirements, really you just have to be a regular or full or part-time employee, 50% or more. So with that, if you think you're eligible or if you're not sure, you can actually just reach out to me directly as well. I typically handle all the eligibility questions.
Emily, can you run through a couple of them or run through them pretty quick?
Yeah, so like 50% or more, regular, full, or part-time. You have to purchase one of the homes in the targeted neighborhood. So Berry Circle, Druid Heights, Heritage Crossing, Hollands Market, Mount Clair, Pigtown, Poppleton, Union Square, and Franklin Square. The biggest piece of eligibility that I always say is the first thing to do is to get your homeownership counseling. I see you nodding. Um, because you have to have your homeownership counseling before putting your offer in to be eligible for this grant. So this grant, we do work with the city of Baltimore to submit everything, and the city requires this homeownership counseling. So I always say get your homeownership counseling out of the way, because that certificate is good for 18 months. So it's not like you get that certificate and have to put an offer in the next day. You can kind of digest, look for a home, find a realtor, or do all those different things. So you have plenty of time, but getting that homeownership counseling is the number one thing I always say to do first.
Emily, we heard something about the city having trouble processing certain paperwork. I take it that has not been a problem in this program.
I've not had any issues with this at all. And I have a direct contact there just in case, but we have not had any issues with that at all, which is great. So typically, I know a lot of times we get the question, maybe someone's asking this, is how long does it take from start to finish? Especially if you've never bought a house before, you wouldn't know. It definitely depends on, how would your inspection go? All the different things of getting the paperwork submitted. But honestly, once you get the paperwork to the city, it's just waiting to close, and you get your check for closing, and then that's it. So, I mean, Haley could probably speak more to that than me because she actually went through it. How fast was it for you?
About 3 months, just the entire process of initiation versus the closeout. Now, I went through this March 2020, if we can remember then, just like the start of COVID. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So at that time, the training stopped doing in-person sessions, which was heart-wrenching. But it turns out they have a training where it's self-paced, and that was phenomenal. I highly recommend that, and I'm sure that's maybe the only option they offer. But all in all, I would say about 3 months.
Good. Alex?
We're getting a lot of questions. First, a real quick one, because it fits right into what you're talking about. Someone writes, do you have to be a first-time home buyer?
You do not have to be a first-time home buyer. We have had that question come up multiple times before, which is awesome. But you do have to live. This has to be your primary residence for 5 years.
Right. Okay. Here's an anonymous question. How are you specifically outreaching to employees who are renters in the neighborhoods that the UMB Live New York program covers? And are you outreaching to moderate income employees? So in other words, is this a wide range of people, and are you really out there explaining to them that they can do it?
I'll talk about the income levels, and then Emily, you can also tag on. So additional information about our employees that have purchased. So the salary ranges or the household income has been from 30,000 to 510,000. The median salary was about 64,000. So we truly are reaching a diverse group of household income levels also. We have talked a lot about how do we convert renters into homeowners. And so actually it's been part of recent conversations. How do we identify those people? And I'll let Emily pick up from there.
Well, and I think with that, I mean, we have programs on campus through our Launch Your Life with financial counseling. So we've tried to kind of like weave those that might be concerned in terms of finances in the future with communicating out what programs we have on campus to help with that. But I know our communications team has been super strong. Our marketing, we try to market as much as possible, especially when we relaunched, but even now with our 2 new neighborhoods. So, it's things like this where we are trying to get the word out to everyone that, you can do this, and we have the resources here to help you to do it. And the stats show it right there. I mean, Dawn just kind of went over some of those different things. But I think it's about getting the right resources for those who might need a little bit more help with their finances or understanding what it takes to purchase a home. But you definitely can do it.
Alex, can I ask something else about the program? Because we cared so much about stabilizing the neighborhood, you have to be in the house for 5 years, but you don't have to be a UMB employee for 5 years. So someone can go through this program, be at UMB for 3 years. They find another position with a different employer. They move. As long as they stay in the house for the additional 2 years, we won't require them to pay any of the grant back.
Of course, we don't want people to leave UMB. We want
No,
you,
we don't.
of course. Alex?
Yeah, I was going to go to Tony White. Tony, I will go to you in a moment, but since you're talking about this topic, and we talked before the program, we knew this would come up, and it's an important one. We have this anonymous question. Someone writes, in the Black Butterfly, Dr. Brown makes the case of stay where you are housing vouchers for citizens to stay in their neighborhoods to avoid gentrification as a result of things like live near your work. Has UMB thought of initiating a stay where you are incentive in the near future? And this might be a good opportunity to talk about that whole idea of gentrification, just get that out of the way.
So we have not talked about that type of program. Our focus has really been how can we revitalize and stabilize the neighborhoods that are close here to the campus. We spent a great deal of time as a Live Near Your Work committee talking about how do we avoid gentrifying a neighborhood. One of the things that will happen is as people buy in the neighborhood, prices of the homes go up, the taxes go up. So we consciously and intentionally worked with Southwest Partnership to say, okay, this isn't in our bailiwick, but can you, Southwest Partnership, have training sessions for those neighbors that already live in the neighborhood and teach them how they can apply for homestead credit, tax credits, and other credits that will keep their tax base down. So we are trying our best to not gentrify the neighborhood. And as you see, the income levels of people buying homes through our program is again very diverse.
Alex, does that get it, you think?
I think that gets it. I mean, let's go to back to Tony White. Tony wants to ask about a whole different area of partnership. Tony, go ahead. We're having I'm gonna unmute your mic for you, Tony. Are you there? Well, Tony was asking about if we would ever have a partnership with Hopkins with their similar programs, since our communities are, close. Would we reach out to other universities and sort of expand this whole idea?
Do you want to talk, Emily, about Hopkins program, and then I'll finish on the end in terms of why we haven't brought dollars together?
So Hopkins program is similar, and a lot of things we've modeled after Hopkins, but in terms of their program, they give funds based on neighborhood. You get a certain amount based on where you purchase, whereas with our program, you get the $16,000 regardless of what neighborhood you do purchase. So, I mean, that's really all I can really speak to it. I mean, I know, again, like we did model our relaunch off of that quite a bit. However, we have our mission and we are focused on these neighborhoods, and there are certainly going to be different phases of this program. I think we're in phase 2, I think. I think we're still in phase 2.
So a couple things to add to what Emily said. I love this committee because we did good work and we had a lot of conversation to try to do the right thing. We had conversations about, do we use Johns Hopkins model or not, Johns Hopkins? And we said we didn't want to social engineer people's decisions about where to live, other than we wanted them in this catchment zone. So we didn't give different amounts if you purchased in Pigtown versus Montclair, et cetera. We also wanted to make sure that the dollars, especially since we were increasing the amount so much and we were using our UMB resources, that they went to our employees. You don't have to have a pool where employers bring their dollars together to be successful. As long as an anchor institution stands up a Live Near Your Work program, that's success in my book.
All right, as you might imagine, we have several people asking, just putting out questions about concerns about crime and safety in the community. Let me read you a couple of little bits. One person asks, how is that spike in crime impacting these neighborhoods? You hear about it in the news. I personally am considering making this move, and it's the only thing that makes me hesitant. And another person says that I'm concerned about the increase in crime and drug dealers. I'm aware that it's a problem in Baltimore. I'm vocal in my community, but how can I get more assistance from police presence to deter criminals? Can we get more cameras? And she also writes, this is an excellent program, and I'm proud to be a part of this milestone. So this is not a condemnation of the program, but just, what can we do to improve things?
I think with any personal decision, you have to do your own homework and decide for yourself, is this the right thing for me? We live in Baltimore, and Baltimore has a high crime rate. We do not on our campus. We have a very, very excellent history and current efforts that are being implemented to keep crime down on our campus. We do have things like Safe Walk, and we have the Safe Ride program. And at one point, those that were living in a certain area, we actually had the Safe Ride bus picking students up in the morning and bringing them back to campus and providing that safe comfort zone. It may be something that we can look at for employees, but it's an individual decision. We work a lot with BPD to try to advocate for the things that people need in the community. Our resources don't go far enough that we can do the work of BPD into Southwest Partnership area. So I think as neighbors identify issues, we can help advocate with the city, with Baltimore Police Department to try to improve things. But again, it is a personal decision where you choose to live. And we just think that's why we're trying to provide the incentive that we are to encourage people to give these areas a chance. And you always have the opportunity to talk to employees that live in those areas and find out what their lived experiences are. I think that's an important way to do homework.
So Haley, give us sort of a sense of what you're seeing.
Me too, Dr. Jarrell is coming off mute. Absolutely. So I think the concern about crime and safety, valid, because it's very true and it's a big choice. You have to feel comfortable where you are. You know, there was a lot of factors that went into my decision making, and feeling safe was absolutely one of them. And I was blessed to find, a home where I felt safe in this particular community. I think there are a lot of resources within the community that you can access. I know Pigtown, they have a neighborhood association. Our, I want to say Congresswoman, she's extremely receptive. I know I've reached out about some of the abandoned vehicles through the area, but there's a lot to consider. And I think for me, the financial incentive outweighed some of those concerns that I had just from my lived experience outside of Baltimore. No community is immune from crime. So, personally, I've, lived in, areas where, there is a gate, but that certainly doesn't mean, right, I'm safe from crime. So it's a huge decision. And there's a number of factors that go into the final decision at the end of the day. But I think Dawn was right in speaking to your neighbors and looking at some of the resources inwards. It's a great way to move forward.
Alex?
All right. By the way, Haley, a number of people have said they live in Pigtown too. So look, you have a lot of neighbors to look out for, as Dawn mentions. A lot of people. A couple of nuts and bolts questions, and one is, are you thinking about expanding into other neighborhoods? I mentioned that we added 2 neighborhoods in 2020 that are out of our sort of immediate, but there's still areas that we do a lot of community outreach and work in. But is that a thought?
Definitely a thought, something our committee again, we talk often. Something we talk about, and I brought up earlier phases, and that would be part of our next phase is basically to reevaluate what communities we would reach out to. So the way that we did it last time, communities reached out to us and we talked as a committee. Did it meet the mission? Did it meet all these different things to be part of this program? And those two neighborhoods did. So I think part of our next phase would be to look at that and see what neighborhoods we would look to include and expand on for this program.
Yeah, one thing that some of you in the audience will know is that our School of Social Work in particular has extensive programs in the community. And so I know there's broad interest in this program expanding as well. So that's another consideration here. Alex?
All right, quick thing. I think I know the answer to this. I know this is not for investment purposes, but someone asks, look, if I'm going to live there, can it be a multi-dwelling unit as long as I live there? Or does it have to be just a single family type house?
Yeah, as long as it's your primary residence and you are living there, sure. Yes.
Okay. Haley, let's bring in one of your neighbors, Ava Norris, who has said a lot of good things about Pigtown. Ava, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And Haley, I just emailed you. I wanted to specifically speak on the crime in the area. So I grew up in Baltimore County and have always been in Baltimore City, just, friends and things like that. So one of the things that I did before committing to the program was I emailed Emily a lot. And I made sure I was aware of the different areas. So what I did was, during my lunch breaks here on campus, I would walk the areas. I would drive around the areas different days of the week, different times of the day, because we all know things happen at different times of the day. I'm a night owl, so 2 in the morning when I'm bored, okay, let's go drive the area. I started talking to a lot of the people in the area when I was there, just being nosy, just to see how receptive they were to me, because I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable in my home. I've grown up back and forth to New York, so I have pretty tough skin, so I'm not really afraid of much, but I still wanted to make sure that I was choosing, I had to live here for at least 5 years. I wanted to make sure I was choosing a safe neighborhood, and I have had no issues. I closed on my house the day before Thanksgiving in 2020, and I've had no issues. Of course, there's crime everywhere, but I can say, Pigtown is pretty safe.
Yeah, Ava, thanks for reaching out. I totally agree with you about Pigtown, and yeah, thanks for emailing me. I look forward. We're going to connect after this. It's always good to know your neighbor, so I appreciate it. And you're right. I mean, walking around the communities and getting a feel for what's going on, I mean, that's huge, right? You're kind of in there. So that's, yeah, good call on that one.
Someone asked a few minutes ago if you could talk about the schools in the area and if you have any thoughts about that, or if you have any information about the schools and the quality of them and that sort of thing.
And I'm not going to remember the names. Do you want to take it, Haley?
I was going to defer to Emily or yourself or Dr. Jarrell, because I certainly don't know. Not yet anyway, but thank you.
We were waiting, Haley. We were waiting.
So it was really interesting when we started the program, the committee did the same thing that our last speaker just did. We drove around to see the neighborhoods, and I was astonished by exactly how many schools were in this one geographical space. It was really very interesting. There's one particular school, Dr. Jarrell, please help me with the name, next to our Community Engagement Center.
Well, there's the Vivian T. Thomas School, which is right down the street. Why did you ask me that? Keep talking for a minute.
Okay. If Ashley were here and if Ashley's on the call, you can put it in the chat. It had been identified as one of the worst schools, which kind of was a blessing in disguise because lots of investment was put in that school. New principal was brought in, and we have partnered with them to bring new assets to that school. And I think their scores are on the rise. Additionally, you have the new Catholic school that was just built on MLK that is obviously in close proximity to our neighborhoods. So it is something to consider when you purchase a home in terms of resale value, et cetera. But I think we're comfortable that there are resources in close proximity to help with education when you have children at the school age.
James McHenry,
There you go. That's it.
had to think of it. And by the way, the Community Engagement Center is in proximity to these neighborhoods as well.
Exactly.
Well, we
Yeah,
hope
James,
to
James
have-
McHenry is right across the street, really, sort of, right
it's
behind the,
adjoining. It's
yeah.
adjoining, yeah.
yeah.
So,
Somebody else writes that George Washington Elementary is in Pigtown. So there are lots of good schools around there. Let's bring
Now,
in Linda.
before you go, it was mentioned, but I want to make sure people heard it. So the Mother Mary Lang School, which is a Catholic school, just opened up last year. It's K through 8. It is very tightly connected to UMB in a number of ways, including the Department of Pediatrics relative to advice for the children. The target there was to have 70% or more of the students be in the local Baltimore, right there community. So not busing kids in, but rather, or driving kids in, but rather having the local neighborhood kids there. So I think that's a tremendous advance to our community. I get to see it every day. I haven't heard yet how many UMB people have enrolled their students, their children there, but I know that's happening. So that's another really great development in the neighborhood.
And to add to that, they have a high percentage of scholarships for their students.
They do.
They do. I have somebody on the line who can speak also to this issue. Heather Kangas is on the Southwest Partnership Board. Heather, what do you think?
Yes, I'm actually the housing committee chair, and I've lived in Southwest Baltimore for about 10 years. I went to grad school at the School of Social Work, and I work for UMB now. And I lived in Holland's Market for the 2 years I was in grad school and live in Pigtown now. So I wanted to speak to kind of the question of crime, but also some of the school questions.
Sure.
So regarding the schools, Southwest Partnership actually employs several community school coordinators that work at several of our local schools, and they're considered community schools. So that would be at George Washington Elementary School, in Pigtown, Charles Carroll Barrister, which is also in Pigtown. It's a little bit down Washington Boulevard. And I believe Vivian T also, maybe. I'm sorry, I might be getting that one wrong, but so we do have a couple of community school coordinators at some of our local schools. And right now also we're working to help save Stewart Hill School from being closed, which is in the Union Square, Mount Clair neighborhood. So that's something that our committees, which segues to the crime discussion, is working on. Southwest Partnership has many committees that work on local issues that are important to community members. So one of them is housing. That's the committee that I'm on, that I'm the chair of, but we also have an education committee. We have a public safety committee, a vibrant streets committee, historic preservation committee. So we have a lot of really active community members who are really engaged in these issues. And I would just say too, like, to think about like the systemic reasons as to why some places might have an issue possibly with crime, and some places have not been invested in a long time, as like we've heard during this conversation. So just to think about that. And I also just want to kind of give a shout out to some of the organizations over here, I think doing a lot of work as well in our neighborhoods. Paul's Place has been in this neighborhood in Pigtown for a really long time. They do a lot of work with people experiencing homelessness and the working poor over in Pigtown. And then Spark Center for Women, they're another fabulous organization in Pigtown that they do harm reduction work, and they'll actually go out in some of our communities. If you see like needles or syringes on the ground and you let them know, they'll come out and they'll pick them up, and they'll also provide sharps containers to some of our neighbors who are seeing that as a problem. And they're really a part of the solution in our neighborhood too for like public health issues like that. So yeah, there is a lot of community involvement and engagement. So I just wanted to hop on there and say that.
And the School of Social Work is front and center in all of those activities. Alex?
Oh, that's tremendous. Let's bring in Linda Daly Attila, who has a question. Well, you go ahead and ask your question, Linda. Having a tough time getting people on today. It's an interesting question, though. She's asking about, you know, I have a 5-year commitment. I buy a house. 5-year commitment's over. Maybe I sell the house. Can I apply for the program again? So she's really thinking ahead.
There's only one grant in the lifetime of an employee.
Ah,
Was that an on-the-fly decision, Dawn?
yeah.
I was gonna say,
Did
I
you
don't
think
know
that?
if we've discussed this.
That's
I wasn't
that.
sure who was, or I wasn't sure if we were getting her on to ask it. So I was kind of waiting. Sorry.
I think Linda
Um,
Linda might be there. Linda, do you want to elaborate on your question before they go too far down the pike? Linda, I've unmuted you, so you just have to speak up. Because she writes to me, unmute me, please. Well, I have done that. Okay, we're gonna do it again. Linda, go ahead.
Yes, now I'm unmuted.
There you
Hi.
go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is a wonderful program. I'm so happy to have been a part of the first $1 million that were granted out. Yeah, I wanted to know if I'm getting feedback. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to know if I can apply again. I'm trying to encourage my son who works at the university to apply also. And Pigtown is one of the better neighborhoods here, close to the university. I love it here. And the Citizens of Pigtown Committee is awesome. If you live in Pigtown, join our meetings. It's the second Tuesday of each month.
So to answer the question, we have not discussed it. And yes, Bruce, it was a decision there on the fly. One of the things, and we can go back and discuss it as a committee, but hopefully after 5 years, you have developed equity in your home. And that allows you to have those funds that you typically need for assistance and down payment. We want to make sure that we're spreading the dollars that we have across as many people to have that positive impact as we can. But we can take it as a note to discuss as a committee. We are saying, like, if you have 2 employees that live in a home, only one of you can apply for the grant. You can't use both.
It's an excellent program. My family in New York are trying to encourage their employers to do the same thing.
So what that makes me reminds me of a program that I had the pleasure of helping kick off yesterday in 20-degree weather, I might add. JP Morgan Chase announced its award winners for the Advancing Cities Challenge. UMB, and particularly Professor Jody Fry in the School of Social Work, along with the Baltimore City team, won one of these awards. And as part of that award, there's a $5 million grant that goes to a 3-year initiative to build wealth and skill development for Black and Latino women real estate developers in West Baltimore. And there's additional money going into the city. But the point here is, I think, as Dr. Rhodes said, this is about building wealth, about building equity. And this JP Morgan program is doing, I hope, the same thing as it gets more fully developed. So a lot going on in our West Baltimore community. Alex, we got time for 1 or 2 more.
Okay, well, let's get Tashona Curtis in here. Tashona, I'm gonna try to give you a moment. I'm gonna open your mic. We're having rough luck with people, but you're gonna be the charm. Tashona, go with your question.
Hi, I just wanted to know if something happens to me within the 5 years, if I die, can my family remain in the house or would they have to leave or move?
Honestly, I don't think that question has ever come up. And that is certainly something, that's a great question. I just don't think we ever thought about that. Dawn, I think we probably need to add
Well,
that to the list. I mean,
I'll
the
s-
grant's in your name. So, go ahead, Dawn.
I can say right now, if you die, I don't see us putting pressure to kick your family out as long, again, going back to the mission of this program, not only was it to help our employees, but was to revitalize and stabilize neighborhood, put homes back on the Baltimore City tax rolls. And if those things are still going on, I don't think we'd have any reason to want to kick somebody's family out of the home.
And
Right.
Tashona, please stay healthy.
All right. So since we're getting near the end of the program, I have an anonymous question here. Gentleman writes, I'm eligible. I've completed the counseling. I got mortgage pre-approved. I'm actively looking at properties in the targeted neighborhoods. Now, when am I supposed to contact you guys?
Typically, an employee will, you can contact me now. So it ranges from some people contact me before they've even done anything. Sometimes I get an application that they've already put the bid in, so it really ranges. But basically, if you're at that point right now, once you put an offer in on the house, then you want to apply for the program, and then it comes to me. I verify that the address is in, the right neighborhood, that you've done your counseling. And then at that point, you just work with your lender to submit everything to the city, and then they cut you the check. So I think a big part of what I do is getting everyone their resources and helping folks along the way. But once you've purchased or got your offer in, I'm just a small piece there. After that, you do everything, you get it submitted to the city, and then you get your check. So what I would say is once you find your house, go ahead and apply, and we'll be in touch.
Alex, you got
Okay,
3
and
minutes.
I would just say, Courtney Zukowski notes, we should remember that the next trolley tour is coming up. And so people can take advantage of that, right? So that's in February. Do you want to
Well,
talk
so
about that?
there's a trolley tour that'll be in February, but it's not necessarily our neighborhood. So the thing with Live Baltimore is they have
Oh.
various trolley tours within the year. So what we're hoping to do is have a trolley tour specific to these neighborhoods. After that, we would work with Live Baltimore. There's nothing on the books yet for that, obviously, with things going on in the world right now. But our hope is to have another trolley tour with them. But you can always reach out to Live Baltimore, and I'm sure that they would give you resources. And even on our website, we have all of the neighborhoods there, and with little snippets of each neighborhood, all about it. And like someone else said, drive around and take a look and get a feel for them as well. But we're hoping that a trolley tour in the future will be dedicated just to our neighborhoods.
Okay, fair enough. One more quick thing. It's an interesting point. I've heard this too. Someone writes that they've heard that there's a grant in Maryland that pays off up to $30,000 in student loans if you're a first-time home buyer. Have you heard of that? Are there
I
other
have not.
programs that they can combine with these things? I mean, so in other words, if we're
You
using
could
the
certainly
grant,
combine it. So if that program
okay.
does exist, then yes. I mean, if it would
There's no
work out,
limitation on, incentives that you can get from other
no, nope.
sources.
You just what I would suggest is find yourself a lender that's familiar with Baltimore and the city programs, because sometimes there's like fine print in these programs that say you cannot stack. Ours you can, but you just want to make sure that everything else you can put together.
And if you ever have a question about programs and stacking, contact Live Baltimore. As Emily said
Absolutely.
earlier, they know everything.
Yes.
Got to watch that fine print, that's for sure. So, Alex, I think we're out of time, don't you?
It's time. Yep.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the audience for participating. Dr. Rhodes, Emily, Haley, thank you very much for being a part of this. Haley, it was very kind of you to come on and tell us about your experience, and I hope it continues to be a great decision on your part. And so with that, we'll close. What an interesting discussion. Alex, thank you for hosting it.
Hey, thank you. Very
Thank
informative. Take
you.
care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.